Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I'm Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern. And Steven's joining us.
Hey! Thank you for
Steven's
having
here.
me. I'm excited. I can't believe it. It's 100 episodes. That's crazy.
100 episodes. Yep. We have hit the big 100. And before I introduce the rest of my co-hosts, I do want to say, I know some people really don't think too much about this if they're not a real big podcaster thing, but most podcasts really don't hit this number. A lot of them pod fade after only a handful of episodes. We've seen that happen ever since I've been doing this. So it's pretty awesome that I have some great co-hosts to help do this show. And also a pretty amazing game that we're excited about. So keeps us going. We are joined on this 100th episode by the one and only Stormslord. How are you, sir?
Doing awesome. Excited today.
Excellent. And Alpha Soul.
Doing great and ready to start with the show.
All right. And the one and only Mr. Crowjack.
Now that we've hit 100, you know what we have to do, right? We have to go for 1,000. It's the next evolution. We have to go for 1,000. If it's 1,000 or bust. If we don't hit 1,000, we failed.
That's pretty much it. And I actually started seeing people go, one of our favorite people in all the world mentioned, I love how Ashes of Creation and From the Ashes always start promptly on time.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
I started seeing a lot of soon TMs, and I was like, oh, great, Steven's going to sue us because we're stealing his soon TM. But
No, I wasn't the first to use the soon TM.
True.
That's been around for a long time.
It has been. Okay. Well, we've got a fun show planned for you guys. This is obviously our celebratory episode for 100. And actually, someone did a little bit of trivia I saw in our Discord, or I was actually in the official Discord. If you got to our YouTube and watched our From the Ashes playlist, it would play for over 4 days.
Jeez.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's a lot of hearing me talk.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot of time.
It has. It's nuts. All right. And before we jump into all of that fun stuff, we do have a fun Q&A, but we have some patrons as well. I want to thank our newest patrons, Michael D. and Dr. Hudat219, for supporting the show. If you're interested in ESO, Dr. Hudat, she's a fantastic lady. I love her. She's a great streamer. She streams on the PS4. Just a really, really genuinely nice person. So if you want to check out her streams, you should definitely do that. And also, we got a new 5-star review on iTunes. And this one's great. And I thought, I'm going to read this because it's very apt to what we're doing right now. Fantastic show full of great content. So I love this show. Watching these guys break down all the info on the game I'm waiting to get my hands on is the fresh air I need each week. All of the men have their own insight into different parts of gaming and bring different views to each topic. It's the best, especially for someone like me who doesn't know a lot but sure does enjoy learning about it. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and the game info is pretty sparse at the moment. So you know, Steven, that was said. Imagine that stuff. Imagine the stuff they will talk to us about when they get closer and closer. Yeah, this is true.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Keep up the stellar work. We appreciate y'all's hard work bringing the news to the people. See you on Thursday for episode 100. So that's why it was very apt.
I couldn't agree more with that review. I really, for me personally, I obviously watch pretty much everything out there, from any content that gets created or articles that get written, whatever it is, I pretty much see it. And I thoroughly enjoy every time you guys have your show. I think you guys do great conversation, great theory crafting, great point and counterpoint conversations. And I think you all keep it within the realm of constructive and insightful. And I think that's a really cool testament to your guys' content that you create. So bravo to you guys on your 100th episode. And I hope you guys keep it going to 1,000.
Whew,
My God.
1,000 episodes. That's
900 weeks from now. Let's get real. Like, oh my God.
well. I mean, if the game is really
Keep going.
good,
Start moving.
we had this conversation, Crowjack, about other
a
MMOs
week?
that consumed our lives. If we
Yeah.
do weekly episodes, yeah, we could probably get that high. I could see it.
Yeah.
Oh, easily.
Wow.
And thanks, Bob Doley, for gifting the Ashes of Creation Twitch with a sub to us. That's great. And of course, that review was from Grey Jedi. I see them in chat right now, and they also interact on our YouTube all the time. I love seeing their comments. They're great people. All right. Whew. All the boilerplate's done. It's time to jump right on in to the interview because Steven decided to join us, much to his peril. We created a ton of different questions, and we felt like we were going to ask him because we wanted to. We have a bunch that we did, then we ask a bunch of questions in our community Discord as well. If we have time, we'll get to those. And
as everybody knows, as you guys knows, I never pre-screen questions, so I am going to be just as surprised as the audience is.
I want to point out that I have sent you questions every time we do these.
Every time.
You just refuse
Oh,
to get
do
them.
you really? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's lost in transition.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Every time I do one of these shows, I send you questions.
Every
So
time.
that way, I always do this as an interviewer because I don't like as a listener to hit a question where they go, yeah, we're not ready to talk about that yet. You've never done that, or you've at least given us something else. But we can't talk about that yet. We're not ready to talk about that yet. You know, those no comment things are just not fun to listen to. So I try to give questions so you can weed those out. To
that
Steven's
makes sense.
credit, he's never done that. But we try. So, yeah. And there was something else. Oh, right. There was something that we were going to do. We talked about a giveaway, didn't we? Yes, we did.
We did.
We're going to have a giveaway at the end of the show, so stick around. And the awesome people at Intrepid Studios were kind enough to get us a bundle of Ashes of Creation goodies. That includes a hoodie, a t-shirt, a lanyard, and a hat, I believe. So we'll be giving that away at the end of the show, so stick around for that. That way they don't leave right away. You know,
Nice.
wait till the end.
Yeah, that's right.
That way they don't
Dangle the
just get
carrot.
the reward. Yeah, all these people showing up are just for the giveaway. That's why we wait till the end. Yeah.
I am like a dog chomping at the bit right now. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, we are. Go ahead, Crowjack.
Yes. Okay, let's start with a really small question. A tiny piece of news recently. Steam. You guys have partnered with Steam. The big question basically is a two-parter. One, why Steam? What kind of a benefit do you guys receive from partnering with Steam, putting your game on that platform? And two, you don't have to be specific with this. There's a possibility. Will we see the MMORPG potentially on Steam as well down the road?
Well, we didn't really ever plan to be on Steam with any iteration of Ashes of Creation as an MMORPG. But as you guys know, and as probably the viewers know, our Alpha 1 testing kind of evolved into a standalone test ground that became, the 3 modes of Apocalypse, and then eventually became its sort of standalone game. With that respects. And, as we evaluated this earlier in the year for Steam, we kind of came to a conclusion that we wouldn't need to do that necessarily because our intentions weren't to really market the game, so to speak. Apocalypse, that is. But as we, kind of started to approach this back-end reworking getting done, we decided that it would make sense for us to really hammer the servers as hard as possible. And we didn't want to devote much marketing towards, a release of APOC, so to speak. And Steam really provides a great platform that reaches a lot of different users, all of which, exist in different demographics and of interests. And it makes sense from a matchmaking game standpoint for a game like APOC to really funnel as many players as possible because it gives us the most amount of data. It allows us to kick off matches very regularly. And it also introduces people who might not normally be introduced this early on to what Ashes of Creation is as a IP, as a MMORPG development. It gives us access to those people. So that was really kind of what led us to, change our minds with regards to our approach to Steam with Apocalypse. With regards to the MMORPG, there are currently still no plans for the MMORPG to be on Steam. I mean, not everybody's familiar kind of with the business side of what the game industry entails, but platforms like Steam, they do have a revenue share that comes from the games that utilize their platform. Now, Apocalypse is a free-to-play game, and the MMORPG is a subscription-based game. We plan to have heavy marketing ramp up when the MMORPG approaches its betas, and we feel very confident with the ability for us to pull a large amount of people and interest as publishers of the MMORPG for North America and beyond, that we will be able to satisfy kind of that marketing requirement without having to necessarily utilize platforms like Steam. So currently still our position on utilizing Steam as a platform for the MMORPG is still that we don't intend to do that.
Okay,
Cool.
And you're not worried about any negative reviews. I mean, we've already seen, like you said, we had in our pre-show about Reddit's opinion. But
Yeah.
Reddit's opinion
We don't
themselves-
use its full name here.
the site we do not name.
Yeah.
Like Voldemort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're just, they're not a happy group of people. But anyway, that's okay. But to be
It's
fair,
okay. It's understandable.
they're not
To be
happy
fair,
about
the MMORPG community as a whole has gone through
Yes.
twists and turns that
Yeah.
kind of substantiate the jadedness that we might see in certain communities like Reddit or MMORPG.com. It's understandable, and that's partly the reason and motivation why I even created Intrepid and Ashes of Creation as a project in the first place, was because I was one of those jaded people. So I don't really look to those types of comments as necessarily a swaying or demotivating point for me. And actually, I'm kind of weird in that regard, because I look at the negative comments sometimes on Reddit, or the speculation and the doubters and whatever, and I kind of use that as fuel a little bit. I'm very competitive in nature, and I tended to enjoy a lot of PvP games, as I was growing up. So any type of like trash talk or doubterness or whatever it is, usually for me, I use it as fuel, so to speak. Like, I'll show them, That's kind of like my position, but.
And there is a
Absolutely.
level, or there's a difference, and people have actually come to me in the past asking, like, oh, they started content creation, got hate. And I know Crojack and I talked about this a lot too, where people want to hate for no greater reason than to hate. And I've taken to new content creators, and I actually even saved emails where people have sent me like death threats and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I said this to a buddy who just started, and I said, listen, here's the difference. There's people who are going to hate for no greater reason than just to hate. If there's no valid criticism there, ignore it. It's not going to do anything. But seeing negative comments and stuff like that, we've taken negative stances on things you guys have done, but we always look at it from a very constructive point of view. And if
Constructive point, absolutely.
if it's all positive, you'll never get better.
Absolutely, and I've always said this even to, those of you who may not be aware in the audience, but we do have a content creator program. You're watching one of our official content creators here at Dungeon Crawler Network, as well as Crojack. But me personally, I don't like white knights. I also don't like dark knights, so to speak. But I like people who present their opinion in a way that's constructive, with ideas that are alternatives or what they think is better. Because many voices, when the listener is discerning, can be beneficial. I'm not saying we listen to every voice per se, but I'm saying that these voices, you can find the diamond in a rough when it comes to these types of opinions.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. And the MMO...
Got a little Aladdin on there. Sorry about the diamond.
Oh, I started doing that.
Sing in the back of your head.
Yeah. Prince Ali. No, just kidding.
All right, so this episode's over. We are now going to talk about the
Thank you everyone for
live
joining us.
action
You-
Aladdin movie, because it's
No
fantastic.
spoilers.
Oh, it's fantastic. But yeah, no, the MMO industry as a whole has really been screwed, and we're looking at you, Arcage. Everyone just stare at
Eyeballs.
the screen right now,
Eyeballs going on.
Oh no.
calling you out. So, all right,
Yeah.
continue on, guys.
All right. So for this one, we're going to totally change topics. What details can you go into about the architectural changes that made you step back and redo that?
Well, there were a large amount of changes that needed to be done at a very fundamental level in the way that we replicate communication across the server to other clients in a single zone. There was a lot of ways that Unreal does it out of the box, and changes that we had made as well that just didn't jive necessarily. And I think from our perspective, originally we wanted to utilize as much as possible that Unreal provides out of the box, in addition to our custom changes that we make, as well as our third-party partners that we utilize in that regard. But we really just had to go back and do the whole shebang, so to speak, with regards to some custom backend networking, and that's kind of what we learned from the December testing, the January testing that we had. And actually, it was I know we said this before, but it was very beneficial that we learned that earlier on than we would have had we waited to have a more complete and or representative of an MMORPG as a whole, because there's a lot of systems that need to be made before that testing can begin to really push our network and backend changes. So partly that's what Apocalypse originally was decided on to be a testbed for, were the backend solutions that we were creating, and that's what we got insight to early on. But to give you a little bit more details, really it had to do with the way we were, as I said, replicating network traffic between from the player to the server and then back to all the other players, trying to achieve the very high number we wanted to achieve early on.
Okay. Can you tell us now from your... I know we already talked a little bit about APOC coming out here in 5 days. Can you tell us from your internal testing what kind of numbers you're seeing now? Are we seeing a marked increase in improvement that you've seen from your internal testing?
Oh, absolutely. So with regards to the testing that we're going to see on the 20th for Apocalypse, we have the matches that are designed for 100 players, and originally, our server frame rate was operating at anywhere between like 12 FPS and 15 to 20 FPS with 100 players, all with a net relevancy of each other. And that's really not good when it comes to a performance standpoint. Kind of gets sluggish. It feels, very rubber bandy. You don't get, your input doesn't get recognized by the server as quickly as it should. Also, it's not very beneficial for players that have, high latency, or at least a mid-range latency. Right now, in the internal testing and some outsourced testing that we've done with QA, we've had 100 players in our matches, and our server frame rate is steadily at 60 frames, which is its cap, and that's where you get the really smooth feeling happening. So that's an extreme extreme change with these backend changes that we made. Additionally, it's not just a matter of 100 players, but we're pushing the limits when it comes to preparing for the castle sieges. So we have our internal QA tools, such as bots that we add to simulate network traffic that we would expect from players. They move around, they do attacks, they use skills, they jump, all that kind of stuff as one of our QA sources. And with those tools that we've been utilizing, we've seen regularly in the number of hundreds. I think our last test we saw was over 350 that we had in a single server, and we were still above 30 FPS. So once we have time to optimize based on data that we see from Apocalypse and the 100 players, because we don't need to necessarily have our target goal of 500 or 1,000 players in a single zone in order to optimize that network traffic, the packets that we send, the stuff that we replicate. We can take the data that we collect from 100-player matches, and we can start trimming the fat. We can start making sure that only players that need to be network relevant to you based on the direction, the calling algorithm. We have a heuristic algorithm that we use based on distance, on field of view, on they tagged party, are they not, are they enemy? All of those things become logic that we use to increase performance, both from a network standpoint and from a client standpoint.
2 questions that already popped into my head already. One, are you actually looking at capping the FPS at 60, or are you going to let that uncapped in the game later?
Well, so I'm sorry. When I say frame rate, I'm specifically talking about the server side frame
Okay.
rate. I'm not talking about your client render frame rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a different story. So client render frame rate really has to do with like how many things are you seeing on your screen that your GPU has to render, right? And at what quality are you seeing them? How many, how many players are there? How many textures are you seeing? All that kind of stuff. I'm talking more about on the server side. We want the server to perform at a high rate because as it's transmitting those packets back to the players and giving them relevant information that's important based on like what's the movement position of an opponent nearby or the party member, how does their HP change, did you score a hit, is that all of these things have to be adjudicated by the server, and the server needs to be able to process those things in a way that's performant. So we're really optimizing the back end systems, not the front end stuff. That's really, we've been optimizing that as well. On the on the client side, on a mid-spec machine, I think a GTX 960, our last benchmark was around 80 FPS at high settings. Not high. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Epic settings. We were seeing 80 FPS on a mid-spec machine.
On a 960, not bad.
Correct, on a 960. So another aspect of what APOC provides is we get to really, optimize the environmental standards, the character standards, all these polys that you're seeing, these textures that you're having to load. We have really defined the streaming distance on levels so that's optimized. We've perfected our HLOD systems, our LOD systems. All of these things go into providing a better experience for players on on different spec machines.
Okay, next question. Based on the fact you just talked about this, and I know you guys are using, I believe it's AWS for cloud computing. Have you used any bots from outside your geographic region, and what kind of responses are they getting, if you are?
Excuse me. Yes, we have used bots. So the way we kind of spin up bots is, we basically take virtual machines on the AWS EC2 instances, and we can create 50 to 100 bots per EC2 C5 or C5 or C4 group machines, and we start spinning up thousands of those and throwing them into our matchmaking process, into our server load balancing, into all of these different backend systems. So, we are definitely getting results that allow us to tune basically what we've set up. So it's very beneficial to have those types of tools available to both the engineers and our QA team.
Okay, and I'm seeing actually chat, and this is one that I was going to get to as well. But they're mentioning how quickly, I guess they're calling Tickrate on here, the server to the client side. Have you guys measured that yet?
So there's multiple tick rates, right? I mean, it really depends on what type of tick we're talking about. On a world ticks, standpoint, and again, while I have learned a great deal about engineering, I obviously am no technical director with that regard, but I can speak a little bit about it. He just saw bacon run by.
Bacon!
What was I talking about now? I can't remember.
I'm talking about tick rates.
Tick rates, yeah. So it depends, right? Some tick rates have a very high priority, and they'll be running, every frame, so to speak. And that usually revolves around movement. I mean, movement is obviously the heaviest component of any tick rate on the server because you need to know where players are at all times, especially, players that are within the net relevancy range. You need to know what they're doing at all times. So right now in Apocalypse, our net relevancy is 350 meters. And that's because the max distance on our weapons is 275 meters. So we want you to be able to see players in any field of view you have. Exactly. The movement is the highest the highest cost when it comes to that. We have our garbage collection. We have, we don't play animations on the server. We don't play effects on the server. We try to trim all that stuff down.
Sure.
But, tick rates vary, really. Depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't have the tech background and found that interesting, you just found out the max range on one of the highest weapons. So there you go.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Did I leak? Margaret,
Guessing
I'm
that would
leaking.
be
Help.
the longbow of miasma,
I'm just
maybe?
kidding. I'm just kidding.
And oddly enough, the number of viewers went up during that, not down like I expected.
Yeah.
We'll call that as we go. All right, guys, continue on.
All right. So moving on to the next question. So what percentage done would you say that the APAC Battle Royale is, excluding bugs and things of that nature, now that we're going back into it?
APOC Battle Royale. So,
Yes.
I mean, so there are different departments, obviously, right? From a design perspective, APOC Battle Royale is, I would say, 98% complete. From an environment perspective, I would say it's 100% complete. From a, well, I'll say 98% complete. From a character perspective, I would say it's about 92% complete. And then from an engineering perspective, I would say it's probably 90% complete. And the reason I say 90% now, I know we said we were like 10% away from having the reworking done on the backend features. Well, the reason why is now, even though the rework is complete and it's gone through some QA, things are going to need to change post live ops, because we will see data trickle in and we utilize that data to refine obviously our our code, so that we can learn from it and move forward from it, right? So yeah, I would say that the BR is relatively complete.
Gotcha.
Okay, we need to step away from the technical stuff for a little bit. All right, we're going to back it up, and we're going to ask a really interesting question. Steven, with the Battle Royale testing like just around the corner, you played it. It's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
What excites you the most about some of the changes we've seen from the first iteration of it about a year ago to now? Like, what changes to the abilities? What changes to the graphics? What changes really excites you with the game?
I mean, there's two things really about. I mean, okay, let me preface this. I am not really a Battle Royale player.
I didn't think so.
However, you know, when it came to, and I don't want to rehash it, but when it came to getting something out there that we can collect live data from, this was the best option, and it was the fastest option, so we went with it. However, I will say that it is a lot of fun. And, you know, players in the studios, when we QA, our QA test, our external QA test, you know, we've been utilizing some of the GBTN network as well for some of our external NDA QA. But players seem to have a lot of fun with the spells, the effects, the fantasy aspect and nature of it. One of the exciting things for me about, you know, any iteration in the Ashes of Creation universe is the ability to see the world, to see what is coming, to understand the immersive nature from an art direction, from the style guides we've created for these different cultures, getting to understand some of the lore even through the APOC testing, you know, the background of some of these civilizations and the way that Vera ended, you know, the apocalyptic ending it had. Those types of things are exciting to me because I like to be pretty story driven in my experiences as a player. And I think it's really cool to get immersed in this universe that you're getting into. And Ashes of Creation has a very rich and diverse universe. So, you know, that's probably the most exciting thing for me as a player. As a business owner, as a developer, you know, the performance and the metrics that we gain and learn from these types of tests are very great to see, because you can literally see the progression of a product based on, you know, feedback, data collected, you know, refinement process, some polish. And then the cool thing about that is you now can see that as we step forward on the MMORPG progress as well, we get to take everything we learn and move it there as well. So it's the exciting thing there is that we get to offer a better experience moving into alphas and betas because of the bad experiences, or excuse me, the learning experiences we have with the predecessor that is APOC in that regard.
Cool. And I want to highlight something here for chat, just so people are aware, and anyone who's listening to the show later. I know there's people ask about MMO news, but I think people need to understand this is MMO news. I know there's a reason why we ask all those tech questions. They might not be very pretty, but they held a wealth of information that leads to what we're all hoping for, which is the MMO. All those things, all those not pretty things that we talked about, all lead to making a game that actually is a massive multiplayer MMO. Otherwise, it's just a single player instance. So you need to understand that all the stuff we're asking now, even though they're directed towards APOC, because that's coming out soon, and that's our testing ground, they all apply to the MMO.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll
It's a
have
building block.
Yep, we'll have Vera that's massive and takes, you can run around, do quests, but you can only ever see 10 people on the screen because the netcode's bad. So that's not an MMO. Sorry.
Yeah.
Unless
Or better.
unless
good
you're
comparison.
SWOTOR, then 10 players on a screen is all you can actually handle.
Yep. And if you played a game called Bless, you'll understand the importance of that.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yikes.
Shots fired.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, there you can actually tell when a game does not have good netcode. You can feel it, and that's why so many games focus on instancing so heavy, because they can't handle a large amount of stuff at one time. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, Aggelos is, one of the other important features about the MMORPG as a whole is the fact that there's very, very little instancing. The vast majority of Vera and the experiences you will have exist within the open world, and that's a fundamental design aspect of our MMORPG. And in order to accomplish that, you need to be able to anticipate the player population moving together into zones at quantities you may not want to see, but contingencies you must prepare for.
Metropolis sieges.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So all of this testing really prepares us and allows us to get necessary insight into what architecture we have developed to accommodate those things. Right.
Absolutely. All right, I just had to address that before we continue, because I seen chat and I'm like, I got to put a stop to that because,
So you just answered one of the questions. That's okay. Well, we'll skip that one, right? All right, we don't need that one. So we'll get more technical again, just because I like to geek out on that. So from an automated bot performance testing perspective, is that something if you can tell me, is that something you vendored out, or is that something you brought in, developed? How did that work?
No, we have in our engineers internally tools engineers, basically, that create a lot of these automated systems. And there are varying degrees of bot testing that we do, right? There are different levels of access that you want the bots to hammer, just from the initial connection into our account services, to connecting into our matchmaking services, to load balancing across our server network, to simulating player packets to the server and network traffic. Bots get to render quality on client on client side. All of those things really are different levels that these tests get to permeate. And our tools engineers have been amazing with regards to standing up these internal tests post our December open beta that we had with Apocalypse. Part and I would say, as a retrospective, on December just a little bit more with APOC, we didn't have all of those tools in place prior to that APOC launch. We were really depending on that APOC beta. We're really depending on utilizing it really as a naked test, so to speak. We were relying on players to fill what should have been the roles of some more developed tools at the time, but we were so I don't want to say hasty, but we were so excited to get something in the hands of our community that we could collect live data from, that we were a little bit too hasty in that regard. And so, one of the benefits of sometimes, and I hate to say the word failures, but failures is that they're the greatest learning experiences. And, when we moved forward as a studios, we were able to learn from the mistakes that were made leading up to the December test, and we were able to course correct as was necessary. And that all goes to serve the better purpose of the MMORPG development, because we take with us the practices we learn from those situations, and we ensure a better quality product moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So next question, kind of shifting bits to the forums. Specifically, I noticed you guys have this dev discussion series. I think you guys are up to like 8 or 9 or 7 or 8, something like that. It's a great way to get feedback from players, and it's good to hear what people think on a particular topic. I'm wondering, has any of the player responses affected, your development in any way? And if so, how?
And are you getting rid of elves as a race?
Are you?
'Cause that's the only feedback
race.
I provide.
No, we're not getting rid of elves. And with regards to the developer diaries that Maggie and the team have been so great at providing the community, we obviously take all feedback into consideration. What I would say is that where that feedback tends to shine is post developer diary comments that are made, post developer discussions on the forums. We circulate that. Sarah circulates that Lieutenant Toast circulates that to the rest of the team. Post those discussions, and people get in their leisure time. When they're not developing, they get to kind of look through that stuff and take into account some of that stuff. And some of those discussions, come into the round table that we have here at the studios. I can't necessarily pinpoint, specifically if people necessarily say, hey, this person specifically said this, but I do know that, insight is gathered from those from the input that players provide in those discussions. So it does show itself at our developer discussion tables.
Nice. Crowjack, I think you're next.
Okay, I have a question, and we're going to start going back towards the MMORPG here, talking about mayors and running metropolises, running cities. Will the mayor be able to delegate other people, maybe in his guild or whatever, to do certain tasks around the town, or is the responsibilities of running that town solely on his shoulders? Aggelos wants to run his own town. I want to run a coup d'etat to take over. We'll see what happens. But can you delegate a little bit and share the load with some guildmates?
So the mayor really doesn't have, if I recall, the ability to delegate roles.
Mm-hmm.
The roles that become available that are not necessarily mayoral, but that become available within the node are achieved through title and rank advancement through the different organization systems.
Okay.
Right. So as players progress, they can achieve like High Priest of the Temple, or head merchant of the Merchants Guild, or those types of things. And when they do achieve those, it comes with it certain duties that exist and or mechanics that become now available to the player within the node. Additionally, those types of titles come with them roles that exist within certain military activities. During sieges, they may carry with them skills and or additional buffs that could be had. We want to make sure. Okay, so just on a siege perspective, or even during events. Remember how we have events that get triggered when something happens in the world, the node might advance, or a grand temple may be built, or something along those lines might trigger events like the dragon from the mountain or the horde of zombies attacking the city. During those types of events and during the sieges, these titled players and that have achieved this title, they become very heroic, even more so than the normal heroes around them. They may gain additional damage mitigation. They might gain additional hit points. They may gain battle valor and battle cries to motivate the citizenry around them during these events and or sieges. So those are some of the ways that we kind of approach having additional player roles within the node that aren't necessarily the mayor.
Interesting.
But the caution of allowing a mayor to appoint people is that it will boil down to them appointing their guild, and we want to make sure that there's in the real world separation of church and state. Well, in the game, we want to have sort of a separation of state and guild. So, the idea there is that we don't want guilds to control nodes. Guilds have their own gameplay. They have castles that they can vie for. They have, guild halls that they can control, and guild wars, and they have guild quests and guild skills that they can level up. That's a very in-depth system for guilds to have. The node system is really more focused around the inter-guild community of the world, the population that exists. We want players to have the opportunity to be adversaries or friends through not necessarily the guild system in that regard.
So we have the different election processes based off the node type. And the religion has a way of electing their leader, and the merchant has a way of electing their leader. Are these sub jobs also differently elected or differently chosen based off of the node type?
So those aren't necessarily elections. Excuse me. Those are achievements. So there are quests. Yeah. There are quest systems that revolve, and many of the organizations that revolve around advancement, right, and performance. The advancement and performance within those organizations dictate the leaders, so to speak, not necessarily elections.
Cool. Interesting.
Oh, Peter, they saw you.
Oh, yeah.
He full on waved at the podcast.
They're like, Peter! Peter's too soft. He ran away. Peter, come back.
He waved. He gave us a hello while you were talking.
Peter, say hi to people. Okay, they said hi.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good. We're good. Awesome. While Peter has appeared, I see. It's pretty cool. And actually, that goes into... if the mayor is elected, and then you have these other groups that will have leadership positions based on different tasks. I'm assuming it's based on whatever roles that those particular organizations offer. Do they have checks and balances that work against the mayor? Or does the mayor have de facto balance?
So there is. Okay, so that's a great question, Aggelos, because there are some give and take roles that exist within these different titles that are in the node system, and in a way that simulates what is the politicking of a mayor. They have to create relationships with these title holders within the node system in order to progress certain systems, not all, but certain systems forward. So if there is conflict there, if there is non-agreement present, then that can stifle progress for the node.
All I saw was a vote of no confidence in chat, and that got me
exactly. So I can have my coup d'etat, my overthrow of the Aggelos tyranny in a city. I can get all the people together to vote him out. Is it possible?
You could do to vote him out. Sure, that's leading a campaign.
Right,
against, but that's through the normal election method.
Yes.
What you can do again is stifle progress. Similar in the United States, how we have a bicameral Congress, and we have three different branches of government. If different parties control these separate branches, there can be really a halt in progress. And sometimes actually that's a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want one party. Yeah, well, not even just a government shutdown, but basically a stopgap that requires compromise. And if there is no compromise, then nobody wins. So that's exactly. That's the type of fundamental, real life functionality we see that we want to duplicate in the game as well.
I love seeing that player relationship being so important for the progression of cities, of nodes, of civilizations, of the entire game. That's so important, and it's missing in a lot of MMOs. I love to see that.
Two questions. One.
I know it's getting really dark in here.
It is. You just said to turn off.
Turn the lights back on. I'm so sorry. I know. I'm looking at myself, and my head is just existing, and my body is
just floating in space.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go. That's fantastic.
Yeah, there you go.
Love it. Two questions. One, are there going to be any tools to help me fight a mutiny within my own guild? Because that's apparently fulminating now.
Zero. Apparently that's
a
moving
fake
forward.
question.
Nope.
Or, that's pretty bad. These different positions within cities, are there going to be a set number of actual counterbalance positions based on how prevalent a organization is based on node type? Are they locked? Like if it's a religious node, are there 3 popes essentially? Are like
No, the ancillary title positions that exist within a node are tied to 2 primary developments. One, the size, the development level of the node, and then that dictates the availability for particular buildings and or projects to get initiated. When those buildings and or projects relate to certain organizational benefits, that can bring online those other titles. Now, with those, additionally, with those projects and or buildings, that can be, and that's kind of, the ultimate power resides within the mayorship, because the mayor gets to dictate which buildings and or projects come online.
Yep.
So, he could potentially have a devout, religious guild come to him in the city and say, hey, we are going to provide all of the materials and focus on building up, this temple to, this particular religion, because that's what our guild's all about. And, we'll take the pressure off of you for making sure that those assets come to the fruition of that project. And in response, the mayor may say, sure, but I want to make sure I will have your support for this particular system's benefits to the node that whoever the achieved leader is within that organization gets to dictate policy for, right? So let's build that relationship, so to speak. And that's kind of how these titles come online, is that the mayor dictates which buildings are established within the node, and those buildings, when they have participants in those organizations, they get to achieve those titles.
I love it.
This all sounds fantastic. I'm so excited. I love it.
Nice. We have more questions, gentlemen? Or are we near?
Yes, 2 more questions. 2 more
What is
questions.
that? Oh,
What was that?
Look what Brian brought, because right now we're pulling like 12, 14-hour days at the studio, and he just brought. So what is that?
Hey!
That he can't share with the podcast. How rude.
Is there enough for the entire tavern? Because they don't give us drinks. So, all right.
I don't know.
Awesome. All right, let's continue,
All right.
gentlemen.
Okay, so early on, you guys mentioned the ability to track and record different statistics and data, kind of as a foundation of your game, right? Are there any plans to potentially expose any of that on the character level? What I'm thinking of is things like, for example, an option, within the library or within some game system, or even just on the character tab, to be able to see what a player has done or participated in within the world, so that you can make better judgments on whether or not to recruit that player, or just find out better information on the player's history.
Like what
much
Eve
of the game-
offers.
Exactly. That's Eve is what I'm looking at and thinking of.
So we definitely have some grand plans that might not be available, pre-launch, or excuse me, for launch, but maybe come online, post-launch. And some of those plans do relate to, the character profile system and, those types of achievements you discussed, that players would have an option to kind of turn on for others to see and kind of boast for, whatever the deal may be. And having that system, linked in through the website as well, so that you can have a profile page, and even linked, into the mobile companion that we want to eventually have available for Ashes as well. So yes, there is a desire to do that on our end, but obviously, when it comes to scheduling, that is something that takes a back seat to the more fundamental aspects of launch.
Gotcha. Okay, last question.
And I'm sorry, to make sure, because I know many people are going to harp on, or not harp, but just cling to the mobile companion app.
Harp is fine word to use.
We discussed, very early on, our desire to have the opportunity for players to, have some management application over their property they may own, over their processing, over, some of the activities they may be able to do within the node that they're a citizen of, or organizations that they're a part of, or have, guild interconnected chat features and or notifications, stuff like that, family stuff. That's all part of what a mobile companion is. And, it's not something that is, don't you have phones? It's more along
I was waiting for that.
That reference was coming. It was inevitable.
more along the lines of like, hey, this is a great tool to use when you can't be at your computer.
So a follow-up question to the website that showcases some player statistics, like a profile. Is that going to be also showing gear profiles or gear sets or achievements that they've accomplished? Like, what kind of depth do you intend on going into with that kind of a website?
We have to be careful about the gear thing.
That's why I'm asking.
Well, and that actually goes back to the API too. Like, how much API are you going to let us have?
Yeah.
I
We really have to be.
hear it.
We have to be careful about some of that stuff because those things can really partition communities, and it's not to say that the partition can't happen without us exposing those types of things, because it obviously can, and it's really a scale of effort that the guild leader or constant party wants to go through in order to vet people that they may play the game with, and they can absolutely say send us screenshots and you gotta whatever. But what I want to encourage as a community and as a whole is to really look beyond the gear score, look beyond the skill aspect of it, and encourage people to play together for mutual progression, mutual benefit, and to expand the horizons of perhaps the more elitist guilds that become present in the MMORPG community, particularly in a Western atmosphere, because there are a lot of great people that play MMORPGs, people who you do not have, necessarily the luxury of meeting if it weren't for an MMORPG. And I don't want us to encourage that partitioning by making it easier through these accessible tools. So that's kind of where I stem from. That may be very idealistic. I understand that. It might be naive. But I think if the whole point of me starting this company and this project is because I want to espouse the ideals that I hold true, and people, if they agree with them, we'll see how it works, and if they don't, we'll take the feedback and we'll go back and reassess.
Fair enough.
Cool.
All right, we got a few more minutes yet, and we actually had a few questions from our community as well. I'm going to try to lighten around a few of these the best I can. Some of them are pretty funny, some are not. First up, where's our leak, Steven? It's our 100th episode. We need a leak. More leaks.
Oh, a leak?
Didn't you just leak something about a mobile thing?
That we knew about that.
We know about that. That's
if I leak something, though, Margaret's going to be mad at me.
Margaret won't know. She's not watching. I will ban her from Twitch right now.
Yeah, we'll block her. It's all right.
We announced the mobile thing long ago. That was back in Kickstarter days.
Yeah, come on. We knew about that.
Oh, wait. Leak.
Yes. Yeah, you can open the bay door.
That's a bay door.
Leak.
Is it shuttle dock?
It's a shuttle dock.
Here into the building. Not real leaks.
Okay, I think I can leak something. Maybe I can give it to you in Discord. Maybe. Hold on.
And we're not going to share it.
I have to see if this laptop has Slack, and it does. Okay. Hold on, and then from Slack I can grab. I can
wait
see
for
if
it.
Hold on. Wait for it. I wish this thing had a scroller. I don't have a regular mouse, so I have to go up manually. Hold on. Oh, you definitely don't want that one. That's not good. Hold on. Some of the team loves to put GIFs and stuff, and some of them are. Yeah, hold on. Let me see. Wait. Oh, okay. Here we go. I think I found it. Did I find it?
Wait for it.
Oh, I did find it. Here we go.
I can't wait to see this and make a big deal of it.
Let me copy image, and then let me put it in here. Control V. See if that works. Wait for it. Okay, that did work.
Wait for it, everybody.
Look at Margaret's. Oh no!
Oh my God, that's amazing!
Oh my goodness, this is gonna blow up. all right, guys, that's the end of the show.
Yeah, we're ending the show.
No, now just to give context, you should probably show the concept art first.
We're not showing anything. Shh,
No, we're not. Yeah, we're literally.
This is for us. It's not for the podcast. No.
Oh no, you gotta show it.
We'll show
right.
it.
All right.
Hold
Swift
on.
Claw. Let me grab the Swiftclaw. I can probably Google it. Swiftclaw ashes of creation.
I mean, this is pretty amazing, and frankly, you know.
Oh, here we go.
I'm
Okay,
so
I
glad
found
we're
it.
seeing this right now. This is so
Oh
wonderful.
yeah.
I found it on Google, so I can copy this image, and then I can put this in Discord again. And you can show this first,
Okay.
just so people see the process of what it looks like to get a concept in game.
What a difference.
All right. Let me get that up here. We'll do that real quick.
Concept?
Before, yeah, the concept. We'll put the
right,
concept
let's see
up
this.
first before Maggie shoots me or.
Like your internet connection goes out. She just started a DDoS.
She's not related to Clinton's. Oh,
Uh-oh. Wow.
Did I say that? I have never once suspected the Clintons of any foul doing, just so everyone's aware of that.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Put it up on the screen. Let's go.
Oh, that needs to go to the top of the screen. All right, so I know that's a kind of a low pixel image, but you can see this. This is something that they showed. This was one of the early concept from one of the earlier package. This is the Swiftclaw Raptor.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we have been shown. Oh, what do you know? My computer crashed. Oh, that's a shame, guys.
we're
So
out.
we're
Oh.
That's
So
so
sad.
conveniently timed.
I know.
So sad.
Like, it was worth a shot, guys. I know everyone's really excited about seeing this image, but I'm afraid it's gone.
Oh, it's too bad.
I'm just seeing
It's
how
so
angry
sweet,
Chad
guys.
is at me at this point.
You should have
Threats
seen
of
it.
leaving, unsubbing. Yeah, there's a lot of it right now. All right. All right. We'll show this right now. Let's check that
Show
out.
it. It's sweet.
That is the Swiftclaw Raptor in the game, ladies
It
and
is
gentlemen. Swiftclaw
Just
Raptor.
the light, like
Yeah.
watching that light and the shadows and the light rays and just texture on the skin. Like, wow. That's fantastic. And that's a mount.
Yes.
Yep.
That is a
Ride
mount.
this thing.
Mhm.
That's correct.
That's awesome.
That is my mount. To heck with the horses.
I'm so glad I actually bought that too.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this again. This has already been in the store. This is no longer available for purchase. And we're now seeing just how wonderful it is, and we can't buy it.
That is true. That is true. I'm sorry about that. You know, I would love to have rendered models complete for
So
the,
good.
you know, for when cosmetics go up, but
Mhm.
you know, there is a backlog, and eventually we'll catch up. But
Mhm.
there is a backlog, and we are we are going through that right now. But
Nice.
we're making great progress. The
right.
team is unbelievable. You should see its animation set. I think Margaret has a whole debut for that planned soon,
Mhm.
and they get to see all the animations, everything. It's really cool.
That looks awesome.
Sweet.
Well, hopefully we get a chance to talk about it on episode 101, but at this point, Margaret may have me assassinated, or
There might not be a 101.
there might not be a
Never make it to
101.
1,000.
So that's a thing. Okay, we're going to get into some of these community questions real quick because I know we're running out of time, but hopefully Steven doesn't mind. First up, this is from Lay. First, he has a comment saying, "Keep up the great work, guys. You rock." Thank you so much for that. Question. As Steven is coming from a different background than the gaming industry, what is the most stupid thing he said, thought, wanted to do, and where Jeff or Margaret at this point had to slap him in the face with Steven's own sandal and tell him,
I like this.
"This is not how it works. That's not possible. Please don't leak that."
Ooh, well, I think that very early on. So one thing I will say to my benefit, if I pat my own back here, is I catch on pretty quickly, and I've been able to do so from all departments relatively quickly in the process, because I do like to be involved in literally every discussion and meeting, and sometimes that can definitely be very very labor intensive, but it allows me to learn things very quickly. But I would say, I don't know, the stupidest thing I think I've thought of early on.
Pretty much, we could even just use that leak right there as something that I can't do.
Yeah, I would say probably the dumbest thing I have said is
I got one for you that you might not
Okay,
even
go.
remember.
Yeah,
this is
give it-
actually from
yes.
when we were on a show
Please.
together.
yes.
This is one that when I got you to talk about the group summoning on live
Yes.
stream, and everyone that was with you, Jeff, Peter, were like, "You weren't supposed to say that yet."
Oh,
'Cause I said-
don't remember that.
Yeah, this actually was on the official live stream. I remember during our questionnaire, I asked you whether or not summoners would be able to do any siege summons. You're like, "Oh yeah, we'll be able to summon a big golem," and everyone in the chat just looked at you like, "Dude, you just leaked already."
I know. No, I would say probably the biggest mess up moment I've had in so far is probably the hot mic that happened at one of the PAXs. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily go through it. But
Oh, I know this story.
I'm gonna have to hear this after the fact.
that was one of the worst. That was Bacon's fault. Bacon's sitting right there. Look at him, and he knows it was totally his fault. I walk up to him. That was really bad. Let's just say there was another company that was talking some not some good things about me when I was playing one of their games, and I walked over to Bacon during a live stream, and he had a mic in front of him. And when I walk over to him, and I was like, man, this company was talking some mad, and I started just laying into them, and Bacon's like, we're live, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we're live.
Oh no.
That was pretty bad. That was Bacon's like, that was gangster.
that was pretty awesome, actually. I remember I was listening to that when that was going on, so that was great. Next comment. This is from TL. Thank you so much, TL. They left us a comment too. That's so sweet. DCN has been the best source of Ash's info and discussion, and I highly recommend that anyone is interested in Ash's watches all of their episodes. Again, that trivia, it's 4 days worth of content. Enjoy.
It's a lot.
Since this has been your first time developing an MMORPG, what has been the biggest lesson you have learned so far about the process?
That's a very good question. Honestly, man, I hate to say this, but the biggest lesson I think I've learned, if I could do it all over from start to finish again, I would have a serious contemplation about whether or not I would have revealed the project early on, or if I would have gone through development and done the normal process of just revealing it when we're ready for beta.
Mm-hmm.
We never went to. I did it because I came from a heart of like, join me in the journey and be a part of the process, and we get to collect feedback. And that's all still very true. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it over again, but I'm just saying that the biggest contemplation I've ever had during the process is whether or not that was a right decision. Because, as from a player's perspective, I never really understood the development process. I definitely held developers to a very high standard. I didn't give them a lot of leeway when, things, needed to change, or, shit went wrong, or excuse me, sorry, or like, stuff goes wrong or whatever.
There goes that friendly tag.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was definitely something that I didn't understand as a player, but being a developer, it is a harsh reality of what the development process is, what software development is in general, and it's not any fault of the players, because how can they be expected to know that necessarily? But it can be tough motivating. A tough demotivating factor to read some of the comments and to, have to worry so much about, public relations during a development process, and, people, catch when a decision gets changed, when something needs to change, right? You don't want to have to be a completely open book from a business standpoint, from a development standpoint, because that takes a lot of effort to make sure it's communicated right. And you want to have the feeling of being able to be open with the community, and they understand that you're talking to a live development, and there's an understanding that things can change in that regard. I think that's probably the one thing I would say, looking back, what I would, what I would have a tough time deciding again to do.
I think that was the right decision to make, by the way.
Well, thank you. I
That was a
appreciate
great
that.
thing to do.
I can say from our group, obviously, hey, you're on our show, so but we're not gonna suck up completely, but we do appreciate the fact that you are completely open with it. I mean, Steven knows this. I was actually against his decision to go public. I've told him already. I'm like, that was not good, but I can understand your passion behind it, wanting to share with your passion project with the players so they know it's happening. I just have less faith in humanity and go,
You need obnoxiously thick skin for this kind of a thing. And there's one benefit to this that I'm looking forward to looking on, and that is the documentation of the process. Looking back 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now at this entire process and saying, you know what, we are here and this is everything we went through to get here, and it's all documented. I think there's value in that, but right this second, it can be very difficult.
I may have a habit of, whenever I see people on Reddit and stuff like that posting about how Ashes is vaporware, I do a remind me. I just do a remind me for like 2 years so I can come back and post screenshots.
Just screenshot, put in a big old folder.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I have a pretty thick skin. I can handle that stuff. My concern really actually only mainly lies in my team that I bring on board, and I don't want them to get demotivated when they go and read comments like that, because not everybody does have a thick skin, and people want to be people take pride in their work, and people are here working. And I mean, it's it's 7:30 here, almost 7:30 here right now, and people have been here almost 12 hours because they're passionate about this project and making sure that it's given at a quality level that people expect. That's going to make them proud of it too, and they take pride in their work. And I don't want them to go out and read or watch some video that literally is from somebody who has absolutely zero clue whatsoever about the development process of a game, because I can say that because I had zero. Right. And over the past years, I've learned what it is. And it is one hell of a process. So, Anyway, sorry.
No, that's great.
But I will say I love our community. I love the Ashes community. You guys, the people that are in Discord, people on the forums, people who are really hopeful of the project, they are a great stimulating force when it comes to, waking up every morning and spending your every living, breathing, breath in creating quite literally a universe, playing God, so to speak, in creating this universe, so that people can enjoy what you've built.
Yeah. All right, we'll ask just a few more questions because we're already over time. If you don't mind, I'm just trying to get through a couple of these. Gray Jedi asks, first, will their live streams ever go back to them talking while running around the MMO world? And also, grats on 100.
Yeah, absolutely. We will, of course, have, when the MMO world is ready to be run around in a way that people who are first-time viewers can understand what they're looking at, that is absolutely something we will do on a regular basis. It's actually something I can't wait. And I know Margaret and Sarah can't wait. We're looking forward to doing those things. We're just going to be very conscientious of getting to that point.
Right. Absolutely. I'm trying to find another question. Sorry. Oh, this is perfect. I'm glad you actually talked about this. Happy had 2 questions I'll ask here. What are the working conditions like at Intrepid? Since there's also been a lot of stuff in the news about developer burnout. We've seen that already. I'm glad you talked about your developers. Not necessarily but any developer can take negative criticism and burn out from it. How are you facilitating a pleasant work environment?
So there's definitely truth behind what the game industry has a systemic problem with when it comes to what's called crunch. I think that here at Intrepid, we've had times where we've had to crunch in the past, and those usually come around, unexpected delays or unexpected marketing opportunities, like going to PAX, or just a drive and a desire to get something in the hands of players and kind of collect data for. We've had those things in the past, but one of the fundamental fundamental processes that we've refined moving forward is having a production team and our leads that can work together in a way that's responsible from a schedule standpoint and an expectation milestone standpoint, that is not going to create a crunch atmosphere, because we don't want to be known for that as a studio. We want to attract talent that has a lot of experience and are veterans in that regard. And sometimes you can't get that talent if you're known in the industry for being a crunch studio. So it is definitely a systemic in the industries. Those articles that you are true, but for Intrepid, we try to move forward avoiding those things. And if we do encounter them, we try to make it something that's pleasant. We take into account that our team some of them can work from home during hours that they need to be with their families or stuff like that, or we always, if there's ever any additional time that needs, I always provide dinner for the team every night, and these types of things that just try to cushion those periods of time if they come up. But yeah, I think the culture here at the studio is a great one. Everybody has a voice product. They have an opportunity to kind of express what excites them as a gamer, as a developer, and being allowed to really have that type of influence is exciting. And we're very a reach across the aisle kind of studio, very collaborative, open atmosphere. We have a flat well. That I think contributes to people's creativity, that creative process, and excitement and desire to push and do.
You're cutting out a little bit there, Steven. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
We got the gist. I just want to make sure we hammer that out. And plus, he also lets beer in the studio. I just saw it. So
There you go.
that always helps with...
I see. Skeen says, if your days are 12 to 14 hours, you're a crunch studio. So, there, like I said, there are times where, the 12 to 14 hours can happen. There are times where that can happen. If a milestone is coming up and we're behind on, bugs or features or whatever, then sometimes that can occur. But really try to mitigate that as much as possible through responsible scheduling and our production team.
And to
that
be
happens
frank,
in a lot of industries.
that happens to me. Like, I've had that
Yeah,
happen.
that's the way that works.
Construction,
Yeah,
business, it happens all over the place.
Absolutely.
Meeting a deadline.
Yeah, you got to figure out how that works, and it averages across the length of a year or so, whether or not you're a crunch.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll know when you're in a crunch studio.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're, if it's a consistent thing, that's different.
Yes.
You have to burn out real fast. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I did see that as well. And we do have a conspiracy theory that the reason why your mic is breaking up is Margaret is actually trying to stop you from leaking, so she's shutting down the stream.
She's not.
All right, this will be our last question to end this off, and from Happy again. So Steven Sharif has spoken in the past about objective-based guild wars that can include other types of conflict besides castle sieges. What is Intrepid's current plans regarding objective-based guild wars, and how will they function?
So, the objective-based guild wars really revolve around what type of actions that guild has participated, that one of the guilds has participated in, right? There'll be default objectives, and then there'll be objectives that relate to the activities that the guild has had, right? Okay. Let's say, for example, the guild recently became owners of a guild hall on a freehold somewhere. So the objective might be related to proximity of that guild hall. It might be related to, capturing a quest item only visible to the warring guild within the guild hall or around the guild hall per se, that requires some type of channeling time, or if the guild has participated recently in a raid, there might be objectives to achieve one of the quest items that the guild may have received from the raid and steal that thing, or to kill a particular member. There might be a bounty objective on a particular member, and that member might have increased damage mitigation and or health against the warring guild, and can call for help in that regard to kind of stimulate the fight and the group PvP action that may exist between guilds. There's really a lot of ideas when it comes. We haven't coded the system of the guild objective based systems. We've done that for our castle sieges, obviously, but the guild objective base is designed to be more fluid. I don't know if you can hear that car in the background.
Just a little bit.
But there's a lot of ideas with how we can get a wide variety, a wide array of really fluid examples of guild war based objectives, and then we'll see what makes the cutting board.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. Thank you so much to everyone who's been in chat. You guys have all been amazing tonight. Yeah. It really does mean a lot that everyone came out for our 100th episode. I know this was a big thing for us, and I was telling Steven even before this, and even my crew, how you would think after 100 episodes, which this isn't even my first episode, I have another show that's 211 episodes, and these milestones still make me, I say nervous, they say excited. So this was really cool. Seeing the amount of messages we got from people who just enjoy the show, it means a lot to us as content creators. It's fun to know, like, we're doing this as a passion project for us. We like doing this show. We do. We wouldn't do it for 100 episodes if we didn't enjoy doing it. So, hey, that is a thing. And we will get to the giveaway in just a second, actually. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for listening. It's been great. And here's to 100 more. So, Steven, you guys got to get working.
Phase 2.
All right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I really love, as I said, I love the show. Appreciate you guys inviting me on here to be a part of it.
Thanks, Steven.
Chance. Okay. So what we're going to do is, for this giveaway, we are going to pick a random person who types FTA 100 in chat. We'll pick one of you randomly. I'll give you guys a few seconds to do that. And that person will get your information, and we'll get you everything there. We'll let that roll for a bit.
Look at that chat go.
They're typing.
Margaret, you have to type FTA 100 so we can try to win the prize.
Yes. Let's go.
So you could give it to yourself? I'm confused.
If the Ashes of Creation account wins it, I call rigged. Like,
yeah. All right. Oh, man. Okay. Fun question. Since I said I was going to ask Steven this one while we're waiting on this to actually finish up. The rumors that ArcAge is coming out with like a classic sub-base sort of reverse. Let's just assume what they're essentially doing is bringing ArcAge back as it was in the alpha testing.
So I used to, not only when I was a player, but when I first started Intrepid, I used to talk with, Scott Hartzman and their lead producer, and I would tell them, I think I remember one particular event where I was out with the lead producer, and it was at like GDC, and we went to dinner or whatever, and I was like, listen, man, if you guys did a sub-based, no pay-to-win whatsoever server, I guarantee you that it would make more money over the long run and have higher retention than the flash in the bucket that the pay-to-win tactics have gotten you thus far with your fresh start servers. And they would say no. In fact, one of their I probably shouldn't be saying this, but anyways, one of their investors, I remember I was even talking to him, and I was saying, hey, you give me the rights to ArcAge in North America, and I will have a sub-base server, and you can do your free-to-play server, and I guarantee you we'll compare at the end of a 2-year period which perform better from a churn and retention standpoint and overall, gross profit standpoint than a fresh start with your normal pay-to-win scenarios. And he was like, okay, I'll take you up on that offer. I was like, okay, well, never actually happened. But if it was that, Arcade had a lot of great potential, and I'm sure Margaret's going to kill me for talking about a game that is that is in the same genre as Ashes. But I was a Arcade player, and I enjoyed a lot of the components that Arcade had. I don't like faction. I don't really like faction-based games. I don't like being told who my enemies are, who my friends are. I kind of like to make that determination myself as a player. But there were, and I do like the risk that Arcade had with like pack creation and movement and stuff. But I didn't like, that. I also didn't like that there was no real feeling of loss when you lose an engagement. I wanted there to be some type of risk associated that wasn't just centered around the packs. And I didn't like that you could like summon your ships again out in the ocean, and it was just like a never-ending battle. I want there to be like decisive victory that have, kind of consequences. But there was a lot more that I enjoyed as well. And, if they did this the right way, that would be cool. Good on them. I mean, it's a great thing to see in the industry if the pendulum does start to swing back away from the free-to-play monetization tactics that include the pay-to-win or pay-to-convince later, buddy. And, you start to see these companies are with, in my opinion, it started with a lot of indie projects kind of espousing this feeling, including us, Ashes of Creation. But it would be cool if publishers and developers, and not a lot of this is dictated by developers. Really, it's dictated by suits and executives. But it would be cool if there was a reemergence, resurgence of this. What makes MMO such a unique game in the industry is that it has high retention and longevity. It's supposed to. That's what MMOs are all about. That's why there's a high price tag in the development of these types of projects, is because it's supposed to stand the test of time. And you don't want monetization inhibiting the potential for the game to exist as a long, retentive, experience. And monetization, I think, messed that up. But it'd be cool to see the pendulum swing back, and I hope they do it. If they are doing this, I don't know what they're really doing, but I hope they do that.
I would highlight this, but Dungeon Crawler Network should do a monthly official Ashes of Creation live stream. Just put that out there. We'll gladly do it with you. Anyway. All right, guys. We have picked a winner, and the winner is Varcoon47.
Wow.
Congrats.
Congrats, Varcoon.
Varcoon, send me a DM on Twitch. I'm going to get your information, and we'll get that over to Margaret, who can take care of that.
You have to travel to the studios by foot and receive your prize by hand.
Congrats so much, and thank you again, Intrepid Studios. You guys are great. Thank you, Steven, for coming on the show, as always. Thank you for the leaks, because that was pretty
absolutely awesome. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
We'll have to have you on 200 again, hopefully before that, but we'll
yes.
We'll mark you down for 200 because you can't get away from those.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I want to thank my awesome co-hosts. We got Stormslord, Digital Piper Studios. Check out all of his stuff over there. Just Google search it or go to digitalpiperstudios.com. Check out Alpha Soul. He's been releasing a lot more Ashes of Creation content. Actually, he does more than us, I think, at this point. Yeah. Crazy, man.
Yep.
Check that out. youtube.com/the_alpha_soul. And, of course, Mr. Crojack everywhere. That's Mr. Crojack. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I don't know about Facebook. Whatever. I just started going into my own thing. Twitch. Check out all of his stuff. Amazing content creator. You'll love him as much as we do. There you go. Anyway, you can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. See that? I brought it back in. Be sure to check out our Patreon program, patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork, if you want to help support the show. But how you can really help us is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes, so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. Thank you so much for joining us on this big 100 episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you next time. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.